So now we're going to pivot to the last and final segment, which is the studio side of the company. And we're going to talk about some predictions in regards to the studio. So George, on this one, I'll start with you. What are your predictions for the studio side of the Walt Disney Company?
Well, it was kind of funny that I was actually going to put out a tweet on this notion after the news broke out. And I had saw your recent video, OG, on your channel about with Turning Red, going directly to Disney Plus, and everyone is having this conniption of saying, "Oh my gosh, how could they? This is the pattern for Pixar." Right. Let's be real, folks. Honestly, you have the option of going to see Spider-Man: No Way Home in theaters, or you can go see a animated feature of a young girl that every time that she has an emotion, she turns into this giant, oversized red panda.
Yeah.
For the marketplace goes, which way you going to go? I'm sorry, I'm going to Spider-Man No Way Home. And honestly, this is where the company is looking at it. That it's to the fact of how much money can these animated feature films boast in a theater right now of this is actually the new norm, is what because a lot of people really aren't going to theaters, but they will go to a theater for a kick-ass movie like No Way Home. I was one of them. I didn't go to the movie theater up to the point of that I really wanted to see Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
And so for my prediction moving forward, and even as you had mentioned, OG, in your video, that Encanto only gained 40 million,
opening weekend
out of the gate, and that's kind of on the low end. So for me, I feel like moving forward, that as far as with animation goes, not even just with Pixar, I think it's going to slowly but surely even integrate with Walt Disney Animation, that it's going to be where they could have it in select theaters or select screenings, what have you. But I feel that it's going to be majority on Disney Plus streaming. That's the way everyone's going to go. And then when you have like these big blockbuster films with Lucasfilm and Marvel, those are the ones that are going to hit theaters because they know that people can still utilize the theater on top of the streaming service.
Remember what Bob Chapek said about Shang-Chi, and he got a lot of shit for it, but basically what he said was that Shang-Chi was an experiment. And he meant it in a way where it was like he kind of wants to see how it does with that theatrical window. And I think it did very well. Shang-Chi did very well. And I think they're probably happy to some degree with the Eternals. But Encanto did not perform very well in the box office. So I think what you're seeing here with Turning Red is a reaction to how Encanto did. And kind of mixed in with how successful Luca and Soul were on Disney Plus, because they performed very well on Disney Plus. Encanto did not do very well in theater, so I think that Kareem Daniel, right, is just looking at this and going, well, animation's sort of struggling in theaters. We're gonna go to what worked with Luca and Soul going forward. And I think that's pretty much what it is here. I think, like we said many times, Chapek follows the data. Obviously, the data probably wasn't that great for Encanto, so they switched gears and they decided to go straight to Disney Plus for this next animated film. But Dre, what are your feelings on George's prediction?
It's a very interesting conversation, right? I mean, I know the Pixar guys are upset. I know the fans are. They're kind of upset, right?
They're upset.
They kind of understand the animator's plight there. And I think we got a quote somewhere from some guy, I don't know if it's true or not, where this Pixar animator who was distraught saying, wow, it's like, damn. I mean, damn the theaters. We're not even good for premium access. It's like, oh, boy. Look, I think you're right. I think they are looking at the situation when it comes to, look, the big thing is family entertainment, right? We saw Trolls 3 or Trolls World Tour, whatever, as debuted in like April of 2020. We saw it do really well on streaming, right? We saw that really move the needle quite extensively. And I think studios have really been kind of chasing it ever since. When it comes to Pixar, I think they understand that the Pixar brand is very strong.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I mean, it's like when I look at Walt Disney Studios Animation and and Pixar. At this point right now, where we're looking at right now, I think there's no comparison. I think Pixar really knocks out of the park every single time, whereas Walt Disney Studios, they've been kind of struggling a little bit. And so when it came to Encanto, I was like, I just don't see this doing well. Sure enough, it didn't. And they're looking at the reality there. Also, too, the subscriber numbers were down, right, for the last quarter.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, how do we boost subscriber numbers? How do we keep people coming back? How do we forward Disney Plus subscriptions? Well, one of the ways you do that is placing something like this kind of premium content on the streaming service included. And I think that's what we're seeing there. It's kind of a tough situation. I'll say this. There are two ways of looking at this. You could look at it and go, wow, we're not in theaters anymore. It really sucks, right? And I think there's some Academy Award stuff going on there. I don't know if that's still true to this day or not, but I guess the Academy is like, you have to have a film actually be in theaters for a certain amount of time before it gets Academy consideration for awards and stuff like that. That could kind of play a role in that. But you could also look at it and go, hey, look, we are at the forefront of this new distribution platform for the entire Disney company, and we're on a platform that's really fueling the future at this point, and we're really got the cutting floor. So there's two ways to look at it from Pixar's point of view, and I hope they look at it the second way.
Well, and Dre, you bring up a great, fantastic point in that, Pixar being on the forefront. And see, and this is the thing too, and this is part of the growing pains that we're seeing right now with the change in the industry. I think is that it's really hard to change the mindset of people, because we're all kind of ingrained in this mindset of back in like the 90s when Michael Eisner was doing the direct to video sequels, or cheap quills that they called them, right?
Right.
We kind of associate direct to home as sort of being the cheap or lesser than kind of thing. And that's going to be a mindset that's going to be really hard to undo right away. Because really, I don't really even think that's true anymore. I mean, you see a lot of series, TV, direct to streaming stuff that's phenomenal, whether it be Disney Plus, whether it be Hulu, Netflix. The game has changed, but people still have. I'm older, and I remember those 90s direct to sequel video things, and it was cheaper, right? But we do live in a different day. So I think a lot of these Pixar people, no fault to them, but they still have that same mentality of like, well, direct to video means Cinderella 4, right? And it's kind of like a cheaper kind of mindset, where I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. I mean, Disney Plus is the crown jewel right now of the Walt Disney Company. Yeah. It's not this like second tier thing. The quality stuff, we just did a review on the Boba Fett show. Quality stuff like Boba Fett, Mando, huge things are going on this platform directly. It's not an insult in my opinion, but I can understand the Pixar executives' position.
Yeah, you could understand
where they're coming from, because it really does. It's rooted in that old mentality of like the direct to video crap that we saw with Eisner, with the Cinderella 4, Little Mermaid 3.5, all that garbage. But we live in a different time though, so it's really hard to kind of unbreak that mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to George's earlier point about going to the theater versus not, and what's going to make it out in the theater, what isn't. I think family entertainment still has ways of getting back. Theater prices they're going up, a little bit. Concessions are going up a little bit. Obviously, they've taken a huge hit. They have to make that money back. So when it comes to a family of four, bringing the whole family to something like Encanto doesn't make much sense. But when you talk about event pictures, especially when you have like a 4-quadrant film like Spider-Man, I mean, people are going to go. And so that rolls into my prediction, just based off of what we saw with Spider-Man, what we saw with the enthusiasm for the Marvel brand, so to speak, and what event pictures could bring to the table. I think, looking at this film slate of 2022, I think we could see Disney breaking maybe $4 or $5 billion on some of their items there. I mean, if you were to get like 600 million, 700 million out of films like Thor: Love and Thunder, maybe Avatar 2, maybe Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange, all that. You could get to that. I think it is possible that you could get to that point.
And
That's bold prediction, but we'll see.
Those are the films that I feel that will succeed in the theaters. Those are the ones that people will literally say, you know what, on the weekend, let's pack the kids up, let's go into the car, let's drive to the theater. That's worth sitting in front of a massive jumbo screen in that environment.
Correct.
No, well, yeah, and that's where the theater experience excels. Like, and you're seeing it, with Spider-Man No Way Home. These event films, these tent poles, Spider-Man No Way Home, like Dre mentioned, the Avatar, Star Wars, Marvel movies, all that stuff. Those are the films that really are truly made for that theatrical experience,
Yeah.
And I think those movies were really never in jeopardy when it comes to this, because I think those are the kind of films that really have the most staying power when it comes to that model. The smaller films are going to be a lot tougher, like the Encantos, the
West Side
Turning
Story.
Red. Yes, those are going to be a little bit harder, but yeah, Dre, you're right. I mean, with the slate they have for 2022, it's possible they hit. What you say, 4 or 5 billion? You said for
4 or
that
5
year?
billion. I think it's possible. Now look at
Yeah.
that's going out there on quite a limb, especially from what we've seen.
I don't know, but just with No Way Home alone, they're
Right.
already on a good projectile for that number.
Right.
Yeah.
It's already over $1 billion.
It's bringing in huge grosses, and I think if you can leverage the Marvel brand, especially these characters and stories, to the extent that they could be, I do see good things on the film side, at least when it comes to theatrical release. We're gonna have to see about Lightyear and a couple of other films, but I think it's very, very possible. I do predict theaters, or at least the theater side of the distribution business for Disney, being in pretty good shape.
And that's interesting. And in terms of Lightyear, I would be shocked. And I know the trend lately has been Pixar going, directly to Disney Plus. But Toy Story is such a monster franchise. I would be very, very surprised, regardless of what they see in the data with family movies and stuff. I can't see that going straight to D+. I just can't.
Oh, really?
I can't. I think that's going to be a theater one,
because they already have the date kind of set forth for Lightyear, and how I know of this is because we'll actually be in Florida during the time when Lightyear premieres, and I even said to Jess and Josh, when we're at Disney Springs at the AMC Theater, why don't we go check it out? So if it stays that way, we'll be seeing Lightyear.
I'll say this: Turning Red was supposed to debut in theaters March 11th, and think about how many distribution dollars, or maybe even potential marketing dollars that were going into that film. How many agreements that you had to break for it to be pulled out of theaters and be put into Disney Plus.
Lightyear, do you see is there a comparison, or do you think it's a much more higher market for that, though?
I think I will agree with OG's sentiment on that. I mean, look, it's supposed to come out June 17th, 2022, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to learn anything about that, we'll learn it probably in April. Is that right? 2 months out?
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever happens in April, we'll see. I think if it does stay in theaters, it would be for the exact reasons that OG mentions.
And Lightyear is a spectacle film. A Lightyear is a tentpole film. It's Pixar's Spider-Man. It's a big event movie. It's a spectacle visually, even. It meets all the criteria for a theatrical release. Turning Red really doesn't. Turning Red, most of the film takes place in either like the classroom or the girl's home. It's a smaller movie. So is Luca, even Soul. Lightyear is a big spectacle tentpole thing. It's a Toy Story brand. It's a huge franchise. I would just be so surprised if that didn't go into theaters. I could be wrong though, but yeah.
No, I think you're right, because I think when I first saw the preview of Lightyear, kind of what it reminded me of, you took the concept of Toy Story and meshed The Incredibles mixed with WALL-E. That was Toy Story, WALL-E, The Incredibles mixed it together, and that's kind of like the vibe that I got with the trailer for Lightyear.
Yeah.
I mean, Pixar can. I think Pixar is still very capable of bringing in anywhere from 500 million on up from the theater side. And if there's a movie on the slate that could do it, I think you're right, OG. I think it could be Lightyear.
And I honestly think Lightyear, in probably Chapek's mind, again, of how he said, he probably won't say it because he got the gripe when he said it about Shang-Chi, but Lightyear may be Pixar's tester.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you want to release something in theaters, here you go. Maybe this will depict whether or not that, you know, how the numbers go. And he's given them that chance to say, well, let's do it with Lightyear. Let's not let the tester be something like Turning Red. Let's try Lightyear. I
would also like to juxtapose that against maybe the consumer products division and how, well, now it's parks, experiences, and products, but that's another story. The consumer product side of things, right? We did see Soul come out direct to Disney Plus, and they had a lot of merch for that didn't necessarily move. Now, is that because of the distribution strategy? I'm not sure. And Chapek was asked about this, and he brought up the fact of Mandalorian, very successful on Disney Plus. Okay, good, we got it. But when it comes to Lightyear, I would also bring consumer products into the equation as to whether or not that gets a theatrical release or not.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, my prediction for the studio side of the Walt Disney Company is I think 2022 is going to be the year of Star Wars. Essentially, I think that Book of Boba, you're seeing, you know, very high marks for Book of Boba. We all liked it. Fans in general are pretty much united in liking it. Now, not everyone loves it, you know, granted, but I think for the most part, it's receiving high marks. And I think Kenobi coming out later this year is going to be a massive thing, a massive gargantuan hit that might even surpass Mandalorian. I think this is the year of Star Wars. I think Star Wars has kind of found its niche on Disney Plus. I think that Favreau and Filoni are kicking some butt. And they're really stepping in their, like, you know, they're in their rhythm now. They have a couple shows under their belt. Once Kenobi hits with Deborah Chow, it's going to be a big year for Star Wars. I really do believe that. And no movies, but Star Wars is going to do it, I think, on the streaming platform. But
and I'm okay with that, believe it or not. I'm actually okay. I have more confidence with Lucasfilm and Star Wars than on the streaming platform with Disney Plus than I am moving forward to having a movie in the theaters. And I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit when we were talking about Kathleen Kennedy, depending on how Indy 5 does. Well, with the production, you know, hassle that's going on again, off again, green light, you know, yellow light with Indy 5, it almost makes me wonder that if they could have got so much more out of it, turning it into like a series rather than just a one and deal movie film that's going to be released in theaters.
Interesting. What do you think, Dre, in terms of the year of Star Wars?
Yeah, it's a bold prediction. But I can see why you say that. Now, looking at it, I mean, you're talking about 3 big series coming out here. You know, Book of Boba Fett's already lighting fire here. I mean, it's really doing a phenomenal job. Then you have, like you said, Kenobi, and I think we're looking at season 3 of Mandalorian. Is that correct?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even consider that one, but you're right. Yeah. I think season 3 comes out. Yep.
So I think you're right about that. I think it might be, you know, Star Wars is kind of momentum upward and kind of getting the ball rolling on future projects and development. Like you said, George, I do have pretty good confidence, at least when, you know, Favreau and Filoni are even tangentially attached. You know, good things seem to happen. So yes, I do have confidence in them to pull this off. You know, my only thing would be, hey, look, you know, you could mix in films as more event pictures surrounding these stories on Disney Plus. You know, have your cake and kind of eat it too, so to speak. Lead up to a film and then break for more series. Lead up to a film, and you could play it like that. I think it would do well. Yeah. But yeah, that's a pretty bold prediction, but I like it.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be a big year for them. I'm really looking forward to Kenobi. I really enjoyed. I know a lot of fans weren't really too thrilled with the prequels, but I did enjoy a lot of those prequel films. I loved the Kenobi and Anakin dynamic. Yeah. I think they played well off each other. I love Ewan McGregor.
I was just going to say, Ewan McGregor
Um,
portrayed the younger version of what Kenobi was in the original really well. Like he brought
Did.
his own personification of that character that I think could really stretch the Kenobi series out.
Fans accepted him in that role. Not so much with what was the guy? What was the guy's name who played Han Solo? Now I drew a blank.
Oh boy,
Alden,
Alden Ehrenreich. You're
yes.
right, Alden Ehrenreich.
Not so much with him, and I mean, nothing against him. I mean, but it's just fans didn't really. They didn't feel that with him.
Yeah.
He was never Han Solo to a lot of people. But Kenobi, Ewan McGregor's version of Kenobi, he instantly filled in that role, and people accepted him in that role. I think he did a phenomenal job, and their fans are thirsty for more Kenobi. We wanted a Kenobi. Remember back in like a few years ago, we were a Kenobi movie.
Yes.
Movie.
Yes. This is something that fans have wanted for a long, long time. They've wanted to integrate or reintegrate Ian McGregor into the role, fill that gap of when he drops off Luke Skywalker to Uncle Owen and what happens, between that time period, between that and New Hope. We've wanted to see this for a long time. I think they'll do really, really well. It's interesting you bring up Han Solo because I think I can confidently say, when I'm hearing the rumors and everything like that, I think we might have an appearance from a famous smuggler when it comes to Book of Boba Fett. I think it is possible. That's the big rumor that's out there.
I heard that rumor too. I'm kind of crossing my fingers with that as well.
Yeah, I've heard that on actually I was watching Den of Nerds. I don't know if you guys watch Den of Nerds, but he was talking about that. It wouldn't shock me at all. Look, they did a good job with the Luke Skywalker, the de-aging. I know it wasn't perfect, but it was I think like 90% there.
It was there.
It was there.
It was there.
Yeah. It was good. It was very good. And I think they can do the same thing with Harrison. And I think they're going to want to do that. Look, reality is, and I know this is kind of a downer, but it's just the reality of life. Harrison's not getting any younger. So I really want Lucasfilm to utilize him in as much as they can while we still can, Yeah. So if you can get him into Book of Boba and de-age him, do it, man. You right now is when,
And that sets the stage for what you were saying, OG, previous when we were talking about intertwining mini stories in between the sequels.
Right.
So that's a good way of placing Han Solo after the fact of the Return of the Jedi, but yet before Force Awakens. So it's like, where is that timeline go between that? And that could set the stage for, as you had mentioned, with the sequels.
I could see him making an appearance in Jabba's palace as a representative of the New Republic. That would be freaking dope, dude.
It would be dope. And that would be something that they would drop. It's not going to be episode 3 or anything. No. It'll be like the finale for sure.
It's going to be finale. They're going to do it just like they did Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
You're gonna have Boba Fett finally take the reins as daimyo, and he's gonna be respected, and he's going to achieve all of his goals, and now he's being brought into the Ford, into the New Republic space, helping them out defeat the remnant of the Empire. And who's the representative? I think we all know who it is. That'd be my prediction.
Yes, that's a good one. I think you might not be too far off on that. That's it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I've heard this rumor too, with the Han Solo thing. And I just think that they've received so much fan praise with the Luke Skywalker. And I think that Favreau and Filoni, they know how to handle these characters. They're going to do Han justice, and it's going to be glorious.
A lot of positive goodwill directed towards Star Wars, which they need.
Yes.
A lot of positive goodwill. So I think they want to duplicate that.
Let me ask you guys this real quick before we go. I want to ask you guys something real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of Star Wars fans were complaining, and it really amplified a lot after the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, that we never got like the trio again in the sequel trilogy. I know, Dre, you touched upon that. You were disappointed in that, seeing them all together in one scene, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, because, Favreau and Filoni, they're tuned in, tapped into the fan base. Is it possible we see now, obviously Carrie is no longer with us, but through technology, is it possible we see, maybe not, I don't even know, maybe in Book of Boba Fett or maybe in some future project that we see through technology, the trio, Luke, Han, and Leia, back together again? You think it's?
I think it's absolutely possible. I think it's absolutely possible, and I would go one step further. I think it's actually possible for, there's some great. What they're doing right now is what should have been doing. They did to a little bit, to a certain extent, but really, like, when you got rid of the EU, I know this is a very controversial thing in Star Wars circles and stuff, and my feeling was always, look, some stuff didn't work in the EU, right? Some stuff didn't coalesce as well as it could have, wasn't as received well as some other stuff, right? Getting rid of the EU presented an opportunity where you could take the best of the EU and expand those stories out and really do justice to not only what was before, but what is now and what is to happen further, right? Build some stories around maybe some stories that really did work in the EU, but present them in a new way, so to speak, right? You kind of had a blueprint. You kind of had a place to go. They're doing that now. They're taking some of the best stories of the EU and kind of reinterpreting them, kind of doing some new stuff with them. And there's some great stories of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia's adventures in the EU that they could really bring to the forefront. And I would honestly, it'd be cool to get like a show.
Yes.
Or that kind of thing, showing like what happened to these characters between here and here. And doing it right and doing it proper. I think that's possible. And honestly, like maybe a recasting, maybe a face swap. I'm not sure how you necessarily go forward with that, but man, if you could have some of the ideas brought out, like what we saw in the Thrawn trilogy in the EU, what we saw, with Luke's Academy and his issues that he had. I mean, could you imagine a kind of series based around his academy and him getting started up and his young group of students, and what they were going through? It could be like an X-Men kind of thing. It would be kind of really cool.
Oh man, that would be really cool.
You could do stuff, and I think it's possible.
Yeah, and it's cool too. It brings up the possibility because like Star Wars and George Lucas kind of started this with like the special editions and what have you, but like it's kind of like this thing where like I feel like with like, let's say for example, the young Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian. I think as technology improves and advances through the years, I can definitely see Lucasfilm or Light and Magic going in there in 20 years and applying new technology to what they already built there in Mandalorian and improving upon it as the years go on.
Right.
Lucas did this a lot with his stuff. Now he was changing a lot of things though, beyond just improving stuff. So it was a little more controversial. I don't think Disney will go that far into changing things, but I think that going in there after the fact, hey, 20 years from now, when we have better technology and kind of touching things up a little bit, making it even look a little more real, I can see them doing that too. Or, they can do that with Rise of Skywalker, with the I think the young Luke and Leia in that movie. They can go in there after the fact, in decades from now, and kind of improve on that a little bit. And it's kind of ever changing. So possibilities are endless, but it's exciting.
Yeah, because they even got, I'm for sure, lots of footage that they didn't even get to use in the films, like during the final product. So they could always mix and intertwine maybe scenes that were initially cut from the films and maybe intertwine it with the storyline or the show.
We saw a little bit of that with Book of Boba Fett, right? With Tashi's Station. Yeah, exactly. There was a cut scene that kind of integrated those characters and everything like that.
And I know this isn't like on like the scale of what Star Wars is, but that's sort of like what they did with Toy Story 4 with Mr. Potato Head. Because the late great Don Rickles had already passed before they even got the film, but they literally took all outtakes, all things when he was in front of the microphone, and they literally meshed it into the script, and they were still able to use the character of Mr. Potato Head in Toy Story 4. So there's, as you both said, there's endless possibilities that I think, honestly, with Filoni and Favreau at the helm, I can't say that nothing is impossible for them.
Right. No, they'll make it happen. They'll make it happen.
It would be very difficult to do an authentic recast in a theatrical sense, but I think you could do, like, even if there were technological limitations that you couldn't really get around, I think you could get the idea of a recast set up in the kind of the Disney Plus Star Wars with a series, right? And then like have people accept it through that, and then integrate those actors or stories or characters, whatever, into a larger setting. I think that is possible.